are here with no stranger to the vintage Contessa, the incredible Julia Wang.
Hi, everyone.
Wearing my favorite color, pink. And is that your favorite color?
It is my favorite color.
Yes.
I don't get to wear it as often as I would like, but anytime I get a chance, I love wearing pink.
And you were rocking the Chanel pink bag with it. We love it all. So we have started collaborating with her, and the sky is the limit. Guys, I meet so many people in my journey in life because I love connecting with people. But this woman is truly so authentic and so exceptional.
Thank you.
You not only are beautiful, you're incredibly intelligent. You have this this vision that you don't just come up with, but you go for it. And so before we were recording, it was such valuable information. I'm like, okay, turn that off because we got to talk about this. But it's like people want to be you, or they say, I want to have my life like you. And you're like, oh, I don't know if you know everything that goes into this to get here. Okay, so just a brief summary, and then we'll dive into all the details. But you are the CEO and founder of Next Gen Real Estate Company.
Yes.
You are a total girl boss.
Thank you.
You were top realtor in Texas and in Houston on social media. You have been written up in Yahoo, and you started your business five months ago and have this success.
Yes.
Okay, but it wasn't 5 months of work.
Oh no, I mean, it's been my whole life I've been preparing for this moment, and I don't think a lot of people see that, right? I mean, I started working since I was 12 years old. So,
yes, that's such a good point. Bella, you're 13, you're late in the game. No, actually, she works for us doing Pinterest.
Okay.
But it's important that young kids
definitely. And I
learn
mean,
work ethic.
Even my kids, right? I mean, thankfully, we've been able to provide them a different type of life, but I still want my kids to understand, like, I had to work. There was no choice. I worked my way through college. That was the only way I could go to college.
And you're a T-SIP. You went to UT.
I went to UT.
I'm an Aggie, so I have to call it T-SIP. Sorry, all you Texas people, because I do love your color of orange.
But, and I that's the thing is everything that I've done, every job that I've had was preparing me for this moment. So, I started off at a bagel store. So I would wake up every morning at 4 a.m. to cook these bagels when I was 12 years old. And I would do it actually before school because I just always liked having money, right? I like, and my mom didn't have extra money to give me. So this was the only way that I could go out with my friends, buy stuff, go to the movies. And then in high school, I was a telemarketer. So I started selling credit cards over the phone.
So that's why how you got your quote gift for gab.
It is.
You
I learned very quickly, and I learned, the art of rejection, right? And that's a very important thing to learn. And I think a lot of people, they don't go for what they want because they're even scared to ask. And I always say, you don't know until you ask, right? The worst they can say is no. And I learned that at a very, very early age, thankfully, and that's really what kind of helped me also get to where I am today, right? Is just, and you'd be surprised just asking, right? And most people, again, are even scared to ask, but just even asking, I mean, you'd be surprised at how many people will bend over backwards and accommodate you, right? But most people just never even ask, so they don't know.
And it's so simple but so hard. So I was listening to Joyce Meyer podcast this morning, and she was giving this description of this man that lost his congressional seat and lost to Senate and lost to vice president, and he became president in his 50s. He had all these failures, and it was Abraham Lincoln. Like, you think,
wow, yeah.
And I thought, okay, I have to find that information for Bella, because I feel like when you're young and you get a rejection, you feel like it's this title over you that you're not worthy, or you weren't enough, or and to push through that. Was that your parents? Was that the way you were raised?
I think it was just a lot of combination of factors. So, I had a job, in high school, and in my 20s, I call it my dark 20s. I really got into so I went to UT. I started working in the bar scene. It got very, very dark, very quick. I really spiraled into addiction, drugs, and alcohol in my early 20s, quit college, and I really just hit rock bottom, and I think a lot of people who knew me back then, when I run into them now, they're like, yeah, but I it was really, I got to the point where I either had to change and transform myself or I was going to die. You know, it got that bad, my addiction. And one day I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, you know, and it was really just, and I know the power of just making that decision. And it really was one day where I just decided I can't live like this. So I really just decided to transform myself and, you know, just started reading a lot of books. And, you know, again, I didn't really have the money back then, right? And so I would just educate myself, reading books, just, you know, listening to Tony Robbins. I was a huge Tony Robbins fan.
Yes. His message is so clear, and he doesn't do it in a Christian way, but I think all this is so like goes back to whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's all basic, just being good to other people, showing up. Like sometimes just even showing up is enough.
Oh, definitely. You know, and I had so many people help me on my journey to get to where I am, especially other women, right? And I mean, women went out of their way to help me. And I'm still very close to them. People that helped me when I was in my young 20s, I'm now almost 40. And I'm still in touch with them. They know my kids. And that's also why, you know, at my brokerage and just in my community, I always try to serve because so many people helped me. I would not be here where I am right now if it wasn't for certain women. And I want to be able to give that opportunity to other women as well.
Well, I think you're such a great example of purpose, and you've been so focused. You had you worked with a marketing business for a while too.
I did, yeah.
So your background is marketing. People need to
Definitely.
understand that this is not just like coming up now that you happen to be.
Oh,
like
yeah,
you visualized who you wanted to be. There's a Coco Chanel quote about that. Decide who you want to become and go do it. You had a lot of no's. You had a lot of rejections to get here.
I mean, and no one starts off as a luxury realtor, right? I mean, we all want to start selling $1 million homes. I started off doing $600 apartments, right? But you know, I just visualized what does a luxury realtor look like. I learned my brands, right? I didn't know anything about brands, right? So I learned my brands, learned how to dress, learned how to talk, and just really studied people that were in the industry, right? And just like kind of mimicked and you fake it till you make it, right? That's really
that is such a truth. And we were even talking about that, like in relationships, when you get really frustrated with someone. We were talking about someone wanting to get a divorce from their husband, and this preacher said, for 30 days, fake it and act like you like him and treat him nicely. And if after 30 days you want to get a divorce, then you should.
Oh, yeah.
And it changed everything because if you put out positivity, supportiveness, creativity, and love, that's what you get out. If you put out venom and anger and animosity. And that's what I love is that, I mean, so many people and they're like, oh, we're going to do this and this and this. And you text them and there's radio silence or they don't follow up. You like do it. You respond. You have a team, but you are in the trenches, girl.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I always say I get my hands dirty, right? And I'm not just sitting back. And to me, how am I supposed to lead if I'm not in there doing the work, doing the hard work, right? And I always tell my kids too, you never make promises you can't keep, right? And that's really important to me. So if I commit to something, I'm in it 100% always. And that's just the type of person that I want to be, right? I don't want to be known as flaky. Everyone knows me. I'm always early, right? That's my thing, right? I always show up early.
So good.
But again, it's really I had to transform myself. I wasn't always like this, right? I mean, anyone who knew me in college, right?
People need to realize it's not like you're born this way.
No.
You create and you can become who you want to be by the hard work. And you're also a mother. So that's what I said to you because, okay, we're taping this today early. You walked in at 7:45. I mean, I couldn't give Bella her breakfast, so I tried to leave things there before I left the house. I mean, you do have a nanny helping you, but you're so involved with your kid's life, because that's also important to you as family.
Oh, definitely. Family is really important. And my husband is probably the best dad. I'm so lucky to have such a hands-on dad. I mean, he's the one, he actually takes them to their piano lessons. He's teaching my daughter chess. He's very, very hands-on.
Oh, I love that. Did you watch the Queen's
Yeah,
Gambit?
the Queen's Gambit. So my daughter is 7 and she can beat me in chess.
I
So
love that.
Yeah.
And that's such a good use of her
yeah,
mind.
and she reads books on chess. My husband
Love
makes her
it.
do homework. And, you know, to me, I really just either work or family. I don't really play, you know, and
Yes.
to me, when I play, that's still work, right? Like, so when I was at the Post-Oak Hotel, I was playing, but that's also working, right?
And I feel like I'm there now too. Like, I
Yeah.
don't just go out to dinner
no.
with girlfriends. I don't just.
And it's gotten to a point where I have to ask myself, okay, what is the intention of this? What am I going to get out of this?
Right.
If it's not going to help me, I'm not going to go. Right. And that took me a very long time, you know,
It's
because
hard because you don't want to disappoint people,
You
and you don't
don't.
want to have people not like you.
Yeah.
I've struggled with that, but to be present for the most important people.
Yeah.
And I have a responsibility to lead our business to success, so all of our employees have success, and
Exactly.
you have that responsibility. Okay, so I'm going to say this. As a leader, you brought on 70 new agents in 5 months. Like, so what do you, I've heard you say, what I hear is that you showed them the path to success and they trust you.
So yeah, so you know, a lot of the agents that jumped on board, I actually mentored them over the years. And as soon as I started my brokerage, I mean, they came out of the woodworks and just hopped on board, which, you know, I'm so very grateful for. But again, it's, you know, that's why I say you never burn a bridge, right? Because you never know that who's going to come back, right? And I think the fact that, you know, I'm doing things differently, right? I'm not like any other brokerage here.
You are
in
not,
Houston.
girl.
And
You're paving the way.
So people either love it or hate it, right?
Yes.
And I think the fact that we have so many people coming on board, so many agents, I think we all kind of realize that there's something that needs to change in this industry, right? And it's like, I'm going to try to change it, right? I'm here to disrupt. That's what I say. So that's why, you know, anyone that's, you know, used to doing it the old-fashioned way, I think they're genuinely scared, right? And they all watch my stories. They're all trying to copy what we're, you know, but at the same time, it's like even if they try to copy it, they can't, because that's not who they are, right?
Because you're authentically you, and you developed who you were
Exactly.
based upon what fit with you best. And I think that's what a lot of women, I'm older than you, I'm 53, you're not even 40 yet, but a lot of women are trying to understand their purpose. They want to be moms. We have more females watching and part of our journey here, but also men too, like understanding what their purpose is. And you seem so clear with that, but you had to go through a lot.
Oh, I went through a lot.
And sometimes, like you said, I was just discussing with Adam, I had some real loss in my life that was so painful. I was discussing with my Bible study group. I couldn't have this abundance today if I wasn't taken from that loss and pain of a relationship that I felt betrayed, because then it connects you to God. It connects you to what who you are. You have to reanalyze it.
Yeah. And, you know, I always believe that there's a higher purpose, right? So why am I here, right? And I don't want to believe that I'm here just to exist, right? And just to survive, right? And I think we all come here with some type of mission, right? But sometimes you have to really just be broken down to find out who you really are and who your friends are, right? So, you know, with me, we were just talking about
you lost some friends.
Oh, yeah. I've lost
And
a ton
leaving
of friends on the journey,
yes.
right?
And people need to understand that. When everyone thinks when you're successful that everyone around you is always building yourself up, but it's interesting, as many people who are building you up are also...
Well, they say it's lonely at the top, right? And,
Yes.
you know, and I learned that a lot last year. You know, people that I thought were my friends just really turned their back on me. And these are people I've been friends with for years. But I've also realized, okay, who do I really want to surround myself with, right? And it might not be the people that everyone thinks is like high society, right?
Exactly.
And that's the thing is, yesterday I'm a big part of the Montrose Center. They opened up actually one of the first affordable senior living centers here in Houston back in the third and fourth ward district. So they actually, take care of the, the Black community, the LGBTQ community. And I was there and just, working with the people who have volunteered so much of their time and just committed their lives to helping others. To me, I'm like, these are the people I want to hang out with, right?
Exactly.
I don't want to hang out with the people who are going to bars or trying to be seen. And I used to, right? Who didn't back then, right? But, just going through certain things, you just kind of realize, what's really important, the type of people you want to surround yourself with. And thankfully, I've been able to connect with people like you, right? I'm like, you know what? This past year, I've really been connecting with the right people. And I'm really thankful for that.
I was looking for the name, but I can't find it. It's Hope something. The
Home of Hope, yeah.
Home of Hope, yes. Yeah. And I'm such a huge advocate to stop sex trafficking. And so I love that you're really focused on their survivors, because there are
it's
so many. And to say you're a survivor of trafficking is almost like saying that you're in remission with cancer or that you are sober. Like it's a constant journey every day to stay out of the life, which is really a confusing thing when people hear that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, Houston, it's scary. We are the #1 city in the U.S. for sex trafficking, and I went to Home of Hope, and I was able to run into some of the girls, and I mean, they're just so young, right? And they,
I think the average age is 14.
And most of them
to be trafficked.
I actually just learned that most people are trafficked by their own
families. Many people are sold into trafficking.
And imagine that being your life, and that's all you know, right? And I mean, these girls need so much healing, and just even providing awareness. I think that's huge, because it's such a hush-hush topic that no one likes talking about, because it makes people uncomfortable.
Yes.
But there has to be awareness in order for us to help them, right? And I think I had no idea, right? And when I started getting involved in the organization, I mean, it's mind-blowing. So in Harris County alone, since last year, the cases of sex trafficking have doubled because of the pandemic. There's people as young as 8 years old being trafficked. And it's just, people don't know these things, right? Because no one likes to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. But again, I really just not only want to sell in Houston, but and I want to serve Houston, right, the best way that I can as well. And that's just serving my community, providing awareness, trying to help those who are less fortunate here in Houston also.
And I was mentioning, I went to an event last night. A friend of mine just recently went through a heart surgery, and she's an ambassador for the American Heart Association. We were talking about how interesting Houston is as a community that comes together, and how we have overcome so much adversity. Harvey was such a great example of how we did it. And also, I believe George Floyd's funeral was another incredible example where we did not have riots and we did not have people going after each other. It was a peaceful, commemorative, connected community coming together. And I like what you said before about reaching out to these underserved communities, but I feel like there is more of a connection in Houston. Have you always lived in Houston?
I never thought I would be in Houston. So I grew up in Dallas. I went to high school there. I went to UT. And then when my husband told me we were moving to Houston, I was kicking and screaming. Like, I did not want to be here. That was like 7-8 years ago. But, I've really grown to love this city. And what I love most about it is the culture, right? I mean, we have so many different types of people here. And we all respect each other, I would like to think. So even, when I was at the Affordable Senior Living Center, you have your 3rd ward, 4th ward elderly seniors. I mean, these are two completely different people, but yet they're living in harmony in the center, which is such a beautiful thing. And exactly, we didn't have any riots, right? And everyone was expecting it because Houston, we're the 4th largest city. And, I always try to look at the positives of our city, and there's just so much. There's so much culture. You can go to Indiatown, you can go to Chinatown, right? And I mean, to me, I think all of the other cities, I say they're a little bit vanilla and cookie cutter, right? Houston, we have a little bit more flavor, which I love.
So much. And family, so we talked a little bit about family and your darling daughter, you feature her, and your amazing son. But you also mentioned that you were raised by a mother, and she was a single mom.
Yeah.
And was she an immigrant? And what was her journey?
You know,
and how did that affect you as a woman?
Oh, yeah. So my mom was a single mom. She immigrated here from Korea. You know, growing up, she had 2 jobs. I mean, I raised myself, right? I mean, starting at 3rd grade, I was cooking dinner for myself, right? And we didn't grow up in the best neighborhood. And I saw her working so hard, right? I mean, she worked 2 jobs just to make sure I had clothes that, you know, I wouldn't be embarrassed about, right? And I didn't really appreciate that back then, but now looking back, I just see all the sacrifices she made. And I mean, even any mother, we make so many sacrifices that our kids will never understand. Never understand.
I love you, Mom.
But, you know, just seeing how much she sacrificed to give me a good life, right? And everything that I try to do. I mean, I told my mom, I promised her when she reminds me all the time when I was 5 years old, I said, one day you don't have to work anymore. And, you know, when I think it was like 4 years ago, when my sister graduated from college, I told my mom, you can retire, you know. So now she's living the life. She's traveling and, you know, I take care of her because, you know, she took such good care of me, and that's the least that I could do. Yeah.
And what I've seen about you is it's not just about taking care of family, but it's also about your collaborations. Like, I am blown away as how much you bring to the table. And that's really what we've found is so much of our business pre-COVID was about going to shows and making those connections with people. Because it's interesting, in our business, we buy and sell to the same person, which is the same with you.
Yeah.
You're selling their house, and yet you're helping them buy one. So it's a little different than the normal supply chain. But we became, so much of our business was wholesale, and we became so invested in retail and then doing things remote.
Yeah.
And so we've reached out to influencers, and what I found is I wanted to offer people what they couldn't get on their own. And then I met you, and that's exactly your philosophy. And together, like, what you could bring to the table, like this incredible event we're going to plan together. But tell us about some of your collaborations, because you're always featuring someone else on your feed. It's not just about you.
Oh, never just about me. And again, you know, I not only try to sell homes, but I try to sell the city that I love, right? And the city, I think, is made up of so many beautiful people, so many great businesses. So I really try to highlight a lot of local Houston businesses. And it's like, hey, let's help each other out, right? And, you know, for example, you know, I did something with Top Drawer Lingerie, which has been in Uptown Park forever. But I did, you know, something with them. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, yeah, we had so many people come by the next day, right? And it's like that just took a little bit of my time. It's fun for me as well, but it's also work because I want to be known as a Houston expert. So if anyone has any questions on Houston,
where do I go?
Exactly.
Julia can tell you
because
where.
Then there's that trust, that connection.
Absolutely.
And when you're actually selling your house or buying your house, who do you want to use
most
a Houston
trusted
expert, right? Why would you buy a house from someone who doesn't know the Houston neighborhoods, right? Who can't talk about Houston? So, you know, a lot of the times, and I think a lot of people who don't understand social media, they're like, oh, all she does is take photos and do videos, right?
And by the way, she looks hot in a bathing suit. I'm just going to say, that doesn't hurt.
But everything I do is very calculated. You know?
Is.
And that's what people don't realize is, you know, they think it's all fun and games, but everything I do, and even just collaborating with Houston businesses, I know that you understand they're going to share your videos too.
Absolutely.
They're going to share your stories with followers. And it's like, at the end of the day, you just want as much awareness as possible. And what better place than social media where it's free, basically, right? I mean, you pay for your videos and all of that, but to actually use a platform, it really is just being able to connect with the right people. And the power of social media, I mean, 99% of my business now comes from social media, which is crazy. I don't think any other brokerage or realtor can say that.
No. And so Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell's
I love that book.
Was such a great, so
book.
one of the things he said that you absolutely follow is the 10,000 hour rule. Like, you had 10,000 hours of marketing by the time you were 20. And then also an outlier moment is a certain place and time that gives you an exceptional opportunity you wouldn't have had before. So 10 years ago, Instagram wasn't what it is. Facebook wasn't what,
Yeah.
like we wouldn't have had this opportunity. And so and there's going to be something else that's like the next thing. And that's what I also see in you is that we can't get so stuck in, like I couldn't say, all right, wholesale business traveling around the world's done, so we're just going to close up shop. No,
you have to
we
adapt.
have to reinvent yourself. You have to adapt. You have to meet people where they are. And I was so afraid that people were going to think, God, she's so self-absorbed that she's talking about luxury when people can't even go to the grocery store. But what I found is so much of what we do is entertainment.
Yeah.
And just giving people like the lighter side of life. And I think you do that in a great way. And you do it with your husband also. So he's not in your business.
No, not at all. He's an engineer. No.
He plays in your sandbox and your videos.
He
My
does.
favorite was when he got out of the bed and jumped in the pool. I was like, I want that to be me.
And it is, and I think I try not to ever take my life or myself too seriously. Life is short. And, exactly, you always have to learn to adapt, right? And I think also part of my childhood, we moved around a lot. So I was very used to, being that chameleon, adapting.
Yeah.
And that's also why I think, I've been so successful is because as soon as COVID hit, I shifted the way I did my business. And that was my biggest advantage because I shifted everything to maybe, 100% online. No one was really doing that.
Yep, you were ready for it.
I was ready, right? And since COVID, my business has exploded. And that's because I shifted everything to online. I know people are not going out. People are not watching these network televisions as much as they're used to. What are they doing? They're watching stuff on their phone.
Yes.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start creating really cool videos
Or
that
Amazon,
people can watch on
or the Queen's Gambit,
Queen's
Gambit,
yeah, Netflix, HBO Max,
exactly,
right? It's
where
not
they're
these
not getting
programming
ads,
like
no.
ABC, NBC. I mean that's kind of in the past now, right? And some people are just so stuck on the past, and I'm like, and I see that a lot in my industry, and I'm like, you are not going to make it these past 5 years if you still have that mentality. And I always tell my team, let's always be able to adapt and the drop. As soon as something's not working, we drop it, right? There's not this. And that's why, I always kind of want to have that mentality. I never want to become too corporate because I feel like corporations move very, very slow.
Yes, and there's so much red tape where
So
it's like
much
you're
red tape,
like,
so
I can
many
make a
rules.
decision and be doing
Exactly.
it tomorrow.
I've realized something doesn't work, I drop it the next day, right? And I always want to have that mentality. And that's how I live my life. So
Yes.
I think that's just a part of who I am.
So you have relationships with several builders. I saw that are there trends that you want to talk about that you're seeing these builders doing or what people are looking for now that COVID hit, whereas maybe they weren't looking for in a home?
Well, I have a really cool development coming up that I would want, of course, in the future, love to collaborate with you on. So it's out in Brazoria. So now I've noticed that people are not wanting to be stuck in their little high rise. They're wanting land. They're wanting space. So there's this beautiful piece of property out in Brazoria. I'm actually going there tomorrow. The polo clubs are out there, and basically they're building a community around these polo clubs. So
Gorgeous.
it's going to be about 40 homes, $1 million plus. It's going to be in the polo, like the houses are going to be walking distance to the polo club. So instead of having to drive an hour or 2 hours to ride your horse, you can have just a vacation home.
Amazing.
And there's community center, swimming pool. So I'm seeing a lot of that, a trend, and I just help my clients buy a beautiful 2-acre home out in Friendswood, $1 million home. So people are wanting that land. They're wanting their own little escape. Whereas before it was a high-rise life, right? The city life. I still love the city life, but a lot of my clients are now also buying second homes out in the country so they can escape to that, or a ranch. And
ranches and second and boats and like all of those.
And this is the community that I'm about to market next year. I mean, it's going to be the first basically equestrian style community here in Houston, which is really, really exciting. I don't ride horses. I didn't grow up riding horses, but I'm like, you know what? I'll learn. I
love the fashion with it. Who doesn't love Pretty Woman with that hat?
Yeah.
And my girlfriend that lives in New York, who was my first podcast guest on Styling Social Justice, she's in Bridgehampton, and her house backs up to the polo practice field. And you sit outside at her pool, and you hear the polo
That's
pennies.
exactly what this
and it is just,
like.
and I can't find words to describe it. Like, it's really beautiful. You can even feel the ground.
Yeah.
It's so exceptional.
Yeah, and I just love being involved, and that's just so innovative. And with me, I like just surrounding myself with people who are innovative, who are not afraid to try new things, right? I don't really work with, the suburb builders, cookie cutter builders. That's not really my thing, but it's like, hey, a cool project, a cool high rise, something that's never been done before, sign me up, right? And I think a lot of people shy away from that. They want to do with what works and what has worked in the past, but with me, I actually don't like going that route.
I love it. And you're also not the realtor driving the pink Cadillac. You prefer to be in the purple Lambo.
I do.
So tell us about your love of cars and how that came together.
I just think that goes hand in hand. Luxury,
it does.
Homes and luxury cars, and who doesn't like a nice car, right? And I find it beautiful. And my husband, he owns a Ferrari, and he's kind of like, and I have a G-Wagon. I'm actually, thinking about getting another car. And it's just that lifestyle, right?
Yes.
So I always say, not only are we selling homes, we're selling the dream, right? So when you are selling a multi-million-dollar home, you don't want just a regular agent, right? You want an agent that's selling the dream,
Extra
that pulls
girl.
up in the purses, right, and the nice car, because when you are dealing with that clientele, it's a very different world, as you know, right?
Yes.
And I'm not from that world, and I think a lot of people think I am, right? But that's
because it's so natural to you.
But I've trained myself, right? And I've trained myself, and I learned and I studied. And that's what people don't see, right? They don't see the work that goes behind that. They just see me, making these videos in these nice homes, but it's like everything. I mean, even the polo, next year you ask me about polo clubs and horses, I'll be
You're going to know it. You will.
And that's because I do the work and I do my research and I study and I read a lot. Will Smith, he says, the most successful people, they read and run. Last year I made it a goal to read a book a week, and I did that. So I always try to educate myself.
That's my husband. He's a big reader.
Yeah.
So what's your workout regime? Because you are in incredible shape.
I actually don't work out as much as people think I do, but I eat very clean.
Okay.
And to me, everything that I put I don't drink. I'm very, very conscious of what I put in my body, because I also believe that our body is our temple. And I believe that body, mind, and soul, it's all connected.
Absolutely.
So if my body's not feeling well, my mind's not going to work right, and my energy's
and sleep.
not.
Do you sleep a lot?
I actually don't.
You
I'm
don't
one of
need
the few people that only need about 3 to 4 hours of sleep.
Oh
a
my
night.
God, that's my husband. I'm so jealous. I know. And I'm like, I need 8.
Oh, my husband needs like 8. So it's 4 a.m. He's like, can you stop clanking your keyboard?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting there like working. So now my husband, he has a blindfold and earplugs on. That's how he sleeps.
Yep, we sleep with earplugs too.
And honestly, at night is when my creative juices get flowing. That's when I think of all my crazy marketing ideas, is in the middle of the night. And my assistants know that. I'm texting them at 3 a.m. They're like, Julia, can you go to sleep?
I love it. But you don't expect them to answer.
No. But they'll wake up and they're like,
I got a text.
Yeah.
I know somebody was saying that you shouldn't text or email in the middle of the night because that means you expect them to be awake. I'm like, no. That is not how I feel.
Yeah.
Like, things come to me. You gotta write it down when you're thinking about it.
Or I'm gonna forget, right? And I'm like, I'm not expecting them. Sometimes I don't even expect them to respond when they see it, but it's just me getting my thoughts out there.
Absolutely,
right?
because then it puts it out there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about fashion. Your style is so chic, and it's playful, and you like color.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit. How would you define your fashion style?
I think the same way that I work and try to be, I try to be innovative, creative. And again, that also takes work, right? Because fashion is always changing. And it's not just like, oh, what looks good. I mean, I read blogs, right? I study what other people are wearing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, too. To me, it's an art, right? It's not something that just comes, of course, it comes naturally. But in order to really be fashion forward, it takes work, like everything else
You have to
in
be
life.
reading and absorbing and sharing and talking and really understand it.
And again,
or go to someone who's an expert that can tell you that if you don't have the time to do it. Which is what we try to do here, is give people that, and they can look at you and say, oh, she's doing it, so then I can do it.
Exactly. And I try to be an expert in all things luxury and all things Houston. So it's like, okay, I need to always be ahead of the curve, right? Last year I was like, okay, I need to start getting green pieces, right? Because I heard that green was going to be in this season, right? And now you try to find anything green and you can't because
Right.
but it's always like I try to be kind of one step ahead and just like reading. And I think Europe and Asia, they're always a little bit more, fashion forward. So I always
Yes.
try to see what they're doing. And I follow a lot of like Asian bloggers and, European bloggers to see how they're dressing, right? Because right now I'm like, okay, well, we're not wearing that right now. And if I wore that right now, people would probably think I'm crazy. But I know that in a couple of months, that's what
That's going
everyone's
to
going
be
to be
here.
wearing.
And what
Yeah.
about Korean skincare?
Oh,
Has
I'm
that been a
obsessed
big
with skincare.
Yes,
Yeah.
and specifically Korea?
Korea,
Or
yeah.
yes,
So I'm Korean.
right, I remember you saying
And
that.
so, yeah, I go to Korea. I didn't go last year, but every time I go to Korea, I buy just a whole separate suitcase just for my skincare.
Because your skin is beautiful. Do you have a
Thank you.
regimen there
Oh,
or a
I
person
do. I
you work with?
basically have like a 12-step regimen that I do every night. Yeah, to get my. And I do believe that
Commitment. Like everything about you is commitment, girl. Not one thing happens by chance. I think that's what people don't understand.
No, and they're like, oh, and it's not easy, right? It's so easy just to wash
Let
your
yourself
face.
go.
Yeah. And everything takes work, and I don't think people realize that. And I like to surround myself with those people who realize that and who
get
practice
it.
that. Yeah.
Yes, and are also in it to do the work and to help and to give you tips and to support
And
you.
the work never stops. It never stops. The more
It's not like
successful
I'm
you
there
get,
and I'm just going to write it out.
And I've seen people do that, right? And they fall
Absolutely.
fast, right? And they get comfortable, right? But I've learned you never
100%.
you can never get comfortable because there's always that person that's hungrier than you are and younger than you are. And now I'm like, okay, there's someone that's coming after where I am, so I need to keep on going, right? Because as soon as I get comfortable, that person can go past me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I find is I think when people are coming up towards you, you're like, hey, let's grab hands and do this together.
Exactly.
You're not threatened.
I'm not threatened because I believe that it's more powerful when you can work together, right?
Exactly.
So, a lot of my agents are younger. They're part of the Gen Zers. Like
Yes.
but, instead of thinking of them as a threat, I'm like, okay, what are you doing that I can learn from? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I'm asking Izzy what
yeah.
type of words I need to be used. I'm like,
Oh, I do
can
that
I
too."
say this is lit? And she's like, yeah, you could say that. And Bella's like, Mom,
Well, one of my
you
agents
sound
just told me
stupid.
the new word is like bussin', right? That's a
Bussin'?
new word. Bussin',
Okay, good. All right, I
right?
gotta
And I'm
figure
like,
out
I
how
was
to
like,
use that.
Yeah, and I'm asking my agents, okay, how do I use this? Looking at Urban Dictionary, trying to see examples of how to use this, right? I'm like, okay, bussin', that's bussin', right? And that's the thing is I'm always on TikTok, of course it's fun, but I'm also going with an intention of trying to see what the younger generation is doing because I always want to be ahead with the times, right? And they are the new, pretty soon these young Gen Zers are going to be buying homes, right? They're going to be selling their homes. And it's like, I want to be that person that's going to be able to relate most to them so that I can be the brokerage that sells them their home.
Yes, and you, even though you're such a girl boss and a powerful, incredible, purposeful, committed woman, you are easy to be with.
Thank you.
You are not, like, it's not as though the power is condescending. You lift people up around you, and I think you're also really, so I perceive that as authenticity, and I feel like you're pretty astute at seeing that in other people. So we talk about authenticity, like how do you kind of figure that out when somebody's real or fake, and how long does it take you?
It took me a very long time. It took me a very, very long time to figure that out. And honestly, sometimes I still make mistakes, right? Sometimes I'm like, oh, I do think this person's being genuine. And then I realize, that they have ulterior motives. But the good news is I have such a close circle of people around me that I've known for years and that I trust. And, they always kind of have my back too, right? Because some of these, they've known me before I became successful, right? And, these are my friends that, I've had in my young 20s that have always been there for me. So I know that they always have my back. So if they tell me like, hey, I don't think this person has good intentions, I know that they genuinely are concerned, and then and I have to listen to that, and there have been people that they warned me about that I didn't listen to, and then after something happened, they're like, I told you. I was like, okay, I know, right? And that's the thing is I do have just such a solid core group of people, and it's probably people that, they don't most people or my followers wouldn't expect me to be friends with. But
Yes.
Right? You know, and I think, of course, I have my influencer friends. I have my friends who are socialites, right? But my core group of friends are not in that crowd.
Exactly. And there's a phrase that the Japanese culture calls it. And when you're born, you're given this group of people. And I can't remember the name of it, but I learned it through the Sydenham Clinic and on Shalbatia. And it's these people that are going to be your mentors through life, and they're going to help you as you approach things. And in the U.S., we're not as connected to the extended family. I know the Italian family, we had all these cousins and generations, and you'd be in the same room with someone who was 80 and 2 months old and 6 years old and 40. And I presume that that's similar with the
so in
Korean
Asia,
family.
Yeah, so in Asia we have this thing called chong, right? And it's even a deeper meaning than love, right? It's more of like a soul connection, and we say chong, right? So it's not just like a love. It's there's not even a word for that in English, right? And that's what I've noticed is sometimes I see that lacking in the American society, right? You know, we're very selfish. But with me, you know, I grew up, obviously I'm Asian, and you know, I think I've kind of taken that and really try to apply that to the people in my life, right? So not only is it you're my friend, you know, I love you, it's deeper than that, right?
Yes.
It's really like, how can I help you? How can I serve you, right? And I don't like to have superficial relationships. I'm a very intense, extreme person, passionate person. So I'm either all or nothing, right?
Me too. You get what you get. You either love it or you don't.
Right? And
take it or leave it.
And you know, it's incredible because I'm sure with you also, it took a very long time to get to that point where you're like, you know, this is who I am. You either love me or hate me. And I've tried so hard in the past to just be this person that I thought I should be, that people would like, and I was miserable, completely miserable. And the minute I was like, you know what, I don't care anymore, right? I was like, this is who I am. I like wearing my bathing suits. You know, I like doing this. I like being crazy. I like, you know, having these crazy ideas. That's really when the right people started gravitating towards me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because I've hired some social media people in the past, and they're like, you need to focus more on the product, and it needs to be less about you, and you guys need to have something educational. So we kind of took all that together, but if we are in a video and we are not just in it, but we're talking and connecting, and that's the main thing that I feel came from COVID, is this intense need, not just want, but need for connection.
Oh yeah, and you know, I'm sure people do this to you. People come up to me and they're like, "Hey, Julia," I'm like, and like, but they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I watch you so much. I feel like I know you."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Oh my gosh," right? And I'm like, "Oh my God, am I supposed to know this person?" But to me, that's the biggest compliment, right? That people feel like they know who I am just from watching my videos. And that's actually a requirement that I have for people that join my brokerage, is you have to be comfortable on camera, because that is the way of the future. And no matter what, you know, it's only going to become more and more like that in the future, unfortunately. You know, I'm not saying that's right, but that's just the way that it is, right? People are always on their devices. People are always watching stuff. And, you know, not many people, and I commend you for having the courage to put yourself out there. Not many people have that courage.
No.
But I also think that's our biggest advantage right now.
It is.
Yeah.
But oftentimes your biggest attribute is like the most difficult thing in your personality to it. So it's all about balancing it. Well, I cannot wait for the ride with you. And specifically, I can't wait for next Tuesday when we take off in a Tavero charter jet and go to New Orleans for an overnight stay.
Yeah, I just bought so much clothes to try on. And yeah, I mean, it's great. I love the girls that we're going with. Kelly, she's been a friend of mine for a while. Lan, oh my gosh, just the brightest light ever, and the most genuine person. One of the most genuine. I think of her as a little sister.
I know.
And you know, and that's the thing.
And Sherry, crazy Sherry.
Oh my gosh. I know. Oh my, she's fabulous. When I posted her on my story, everyone was like, "Who is she?" I was like, like, she's in her 60s.
She's the real deal,
Yes.
though.
Yeah, and I just
She's
love
like
her
us,
story.
crazy
Yeah.
and fun.
And that's the thing. Like I say, life is too short not to be, yourself, whether that's crazy, And I just love people who are not afraid to be themselves.
Yes. Well,
So
we
I'm
love
excited.
you.
So everyone, it's going to be fun. There's going to be fun stories. I cannot wait for that. It's going to be a blast. And I need a vacation. I need girl time. I've
Exactly.
been working so much. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Follow Julia Wang _ HTX. Yes. And of course, the Vintage Contessa. Till next time, guys. Bye.